What's down, people, and welcome back to another episode of Ghetto Gospel. So where we left off at. Last week, we talked about Abraham trying to bargain with God not to wipe out Sodom and Gomorrah. We also talked about how God didn't need to walk past Abraham's house just to check up on the city, so he must have had another reason for doing it. The last thing we talked about was how God cared about people, all people, and sometimes that's hard to swallow. And now we caught up. So where do I even start with this? First things first, just because you read something in the Bible don't necessarily mean that God co-signing it. I bet a bunch of y'all leave out buku stuff if you was writing a book about yourself. God don't do that. He leave it all in. The good, the bad, and especially the ugly. I done heard a bunch of people say that they like the first part of the Bible because it's more dramatic or it's more interesting. But the truth is, it's a lot of messed up stuff here. It's people with issues, it's mistakes being made, it's folks just being terrible to each other. It's a lot of bad happening. I think on some level, we like this stuff because it look a whole lot like our lives, whether we want to admit it or not. God just got enough heart to tell a story like it happened. So this the part of the book where if you ain't already figured it out, you gonna learn that God ain't who you want to play with. What you about to see is what happened when God get fed up. So in some translations of the Bible, it say that the two angels showed up at Sodom in the evening. And if you reading this right after the last chapter, you might think that these two angels is the same men that was in the last chapter. And that might be true. It would sort of make sense. Except in the last chapter, it was men. In this chapter is angel. It's literally two different words. The other thing is, in the original language, that part where it say the two angels showed up to Sodom, actually just say two angels showed up to Sodom, which is a small difference. But taking the word the out, make it seem like these angels ain't got nothing to do with what happened in the last chapter. Y'all can do what y'all want with that information. So boom. The angels show up to Sodom sometime that evening. And Lot, Abraham's little nephew, was sitting at the city gate. When he saw the angels walking up, he got up to meet them and he bowed down on the ground. That word they used for bow down was the same word they used for when Abraham bowed down before the Lord in the last chapter. But in a lot of cultures, bowing down is just common courtesy. We ain't gonna make too much of that. So the first thing to pay attention to is this here. Lot was at the city gate. And this is the first time you see the idea of a city gate in the Bible. I already said I ain't no anthropologist when we first started this channel, so I can't tell you exactly when all of this stuff with Lot went down. But as you get further into the Bible, you will start to see that city gates is where business happened. It was where court cases happened. It was kind of like the CBD of whatever city it was in. Also, back before folks had stuff like this to blow stuff up, people used to build walls around these cities to keep out enemies that might decide to run up in there and try and take over. Kind of like they did to this exact same city a few chapters ago when Abraham had to go rescue Lot. I ain't saying that this the first time a city decided to put a wall up, but it wouldn't surprise me. So I don't know what Lot was doing at the city gate, but I do know he made it his business to grab these two strangers and take care of them. Lot meet up with the angels and tell them they ought to stay at his crib for the night, and then they could get up the next day and head on about their business. So the angels was like, nah, we gonna stay here in the city square tonight. And I get the feeling Lot looked at them boys like y'all will look at Bill Gates if he told you he was gonna spend a nice week-long vacation in Gentilly with no security. Like, the Bible take the time to tell us that Lot pressed hard to convince him to stay at his house, which tell me he probably already knew the city was foul if he felt like he had to protect them. Now you gotta imagine that Lot still spent some time with Abraham. I mean, it was only a one-day walk away from each other. So it's possible that Lot recognized that these wasn't no ordinary men. If he did, he might have been trying to protect the city from them just as much as he was trying to protect them from the city. That might explain him bowing down to him, but that's just a theory though. So Lot pressed them boys until they folded and stayed at his house. And he hooked up some grub and made him some unleavened bread. If you ain't never heard of unleavened bread, that's just bread that don't puff up when you bake it. Kind of like flat bread or crackers. And this ain't even close to the last time that you gonna read about unleavened bread in the Bible. And the next time you see it, circumstances gonna look real similar. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So they ate and was about to go to bed when all of the men of Sodom showed up, surrounding his house, banging on his door, talking about send them little dudes out here who came to your house so we could get familiar. I ain't gonna make it no more colorful. Y'all can go read it in the Bible if y'all want. So Lot go outside and start begging them folks to leave his guests alone because they under the protection of his roof. And then this nigga Oh, I still can't say that? This dude telling men that they could take his 2 virgin daughters and do whatever they want with them, but to please leave his guests alone. And I mean, that's one man versus a mob in an era before choppers and pumps, so he probably figured it wasn't much else he could do. But come on, fam. Now, bruh, I'm trying not to interrupt the flow of this story, but this a lot. Now, if you one of them folks that ain't know this was in the Bible, it is. And things gonna actually get crazier the further we get into the book. So anyway, them folks tell Lot to get up out the way, talking about how you gonna come here as an alien trying to judge us. We gonna do you worse than them. That's alien like.
Illegal aliens?
Not. And then they rush that boy trying to bust down the door. So at this point, I guess the angels had enough and grabbed Lot, pulled him back inside, and closed the door behind him. And that's when things started getting real.
Mad real.
Because the angels blinded all of them folks in the mob. I mean, took all they sight, so they couldn't find the door. Which, if I was all of a sudden blind, the last thing I'd be worried about is getting to the door. So then the angels came at Lot like, if you got any more people in this city, son-in-laws, sons, daughters, or anybody else, you better get them up out of here, because we about to burn this motherfucker. I ain't gonna finish that sentence, but I'm pretty sure it's technically accurate. Anyway, so Lot went and found his son-in-laws that was engaged to his daughters. Yeah, the same daughters he just offered up on a platter to the men of the city and told them to get up out of Sodom because God was gonna destroy it. But they just thought he was capping. So right when the sun was coming up, the angels was on Lot like, keep playing, y'all gonna get it too. But that boy Lot was stutter stepping. So the angels grabbed him, his wife, and they 2 daughters and dragged them up out the city. Then they was like, y'all better run for y'all life. Don't look back and don't stop till you get to them mountains, or y'all gonna go down with the city. But Lot was like, please, I appreciate y'all saving us, but I can't make it to the mountains. I'm gonna get caught in the destruction of the city. Won't y'all let me run to that little town right there? It ain't that far, and it's a small town. Let me go there so I can survive. And the angels was like, I will let you go there, but hurry it up. I can't do nothing till you get there. Which make it sound like God was holding back the destruction of the city just because of Lot. So by the time Lot crossed into that little town, the sun was up. And then up out the blue, like literally out the sky, the Lord rained down burning sulfur on the city. And this right here, we can't just skip over this. Old translations in the Bible would have called it brimstone, but sulfur is probably more accurate. You know what sulfur looked like when it burned? Like this. God rained down blue flames on Sodom and Gomorrah. Nowadays, anybody who got a gas stove done seen what a blue flame looked like. But back then, I imagine most folks didn't even know that was a thing that could happen. You know what sulfur smelled like when it burned? Rotten eggs. So apparently, Lot's wife decided she wanted to see what was going on. And when she turned around, she literally turned into salt. I guess the angels wasn't playing when they said don't look back. And right here, it say Abraham got up early in the morning and went to the spot where he had that last conversation with God. And when he looked out over there where Sodom and Gomorrah was, it looked like homeboy's car and waiting to exhale. So after the city got destroyed and his wife got turned into salt, I guess Lot finally realized that God was serious, and he made his way to them mountains he was supposed to go to in the first place, and him and his daughters lived in a cave. So if you remember episode 32, you'll remember I was talking about how big a deal it was for women to have kids back then. Well, Lot's daughters was looking around like, it ain't no men around. So the oldest sister decided she would just pull up for her pops until he blacked out. And then the next night, her little sister did the same thing. And it say that they pops ain't know nothing when they laid down or when they got up. And that's how they preserved their family line. I told y'all there was some wild stuff in this chapter. So that's it for this week. I'll see y'all next week. And as always, peace. And I hope y'all people straight.